What's up, sisters? This is your boy, Beef, and welcome back to the channel for another Baldur's Gate 3 modded build guide. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, because I have got something really special for you. We are currently working our way through all of the companion characters, making a unique and thematic modded build for each character. And today, we're going to be transforming our favorite vampire, Astarion, into a powerful Blood Mage Reaver, who inflicts bleeding effects everywhere, enters a blood frenzy, and absolutely annihilates enemies. Before we get into it, I want to thank you so much for watching. If you like this build, let me know by liking or commenting your thoughts down below, and subscribe for more build videos like this. But without further ado, let's get into the build. I think it goes without question why we're making Astarion into a Blood Mage. He's a vampire, spoiler alert, and his default class is Rogue, so we're going to be combining these two to create a really cool take on this devious, sneaky elf. We're eventually going to be taking some levels in a few vanilla classes to augment our abilities and gain some really powerful buffs, so yeah, there's that. But for the purpose of this build, we're going to be starting with a level of Blood Mage. At level 1 for Blood Mage, we're going to be able to pick 2 spells. And we have a few custom options that are unique to this mod. They're the ones here that have the black background and use this very dark kind of red. We also have a bunch of different options here from the vanilla game, like Healing Word, Command, Hex, Inflict Wounds, Bane, Hellish Rebuke. But I like the kind of custom ones because I think they add a lot of flavor to the class and give you some neat sort of blood things to do. The 2 that I'm going to pick here are Demand Sacrifice. Up to 4 creatures have spontaneous wounds, rupture, and bleed, suffering 1d10 acid damage and bleeding for up to as long as you maintain concentration. Basically, it's just like Bane, but it also does damaging creatures, or acid damage. It's like the bleeding version, acid bleeding version of Bane. And we're also going to take the Rain of Hissing Blood. This is a big AoE that blankets an area in hissing miasmic blood, causing 2d6 acid damage to anyone within immediately, and drenching the area in blood. So this one's really cool because as a blood mage and kind of a vampire, we're just going to be throwing blood everywhere. We love blood. We're going to be dropping those spell slots to just rain blood on our enemies. It'll do acid damage, and it'll also make the area coated in blood, which is really fun, and it'll help kind of increase things as we go along. For our ability scores, this class is going to rely on its Constitution statistic for spellcasting. That said, spellcasting is somewhat secondary to our melee attacks for this build, but additionally, when we pick our subclass at level 3, we're going to get a passive feature which adds our Strength modifier to our armor class. So if you wanted to feed this character strength potions, you could potentially get a +8 to your AC once you're getting into the Act 3 and using the Elixirs of Cloud Giant strength, which is wildly powerful. But I try not to rely on strength potions when I play the game, just because, I don't know. We are also going to set our Constitution to a 16 with a +2 in it, so that we can have a 16 in Constitution and Strength. These are our 2 main stats. Dexterity is going to give us a +2 in our initiative and our armor class from this 14, so potentially here we have a +5 in total to our armor class from our dexterity and our strength combined, which is really powerful, especially since this character is not going to be wearing armor normally, so we're going to be able to have a really great unarmored defense. We are also going to use, the rest of our 3 stats can be pretty much dumped, so I'm going to go with 10, 10, and 8 for Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. We don't really need anything too special in here. These are mostly just for saving throws for us. The majority of our build is going to be centered on our physical abilities, like our Constitution, our Strength, and our Dexterity to a certain extent. As we advance to level 2, we are going to get a new spell, and in this instance, I am going to take Command, because it is an awesome crowd control spell that we can use, and it really kind of feeds into the whole vampire or blood mage, like having the ability to just kind of command people to say stop, or grovel, or whatever the other ones are. This is just a really good spell to have in your arsenal. So we're going to take Command. That's about it for level 2. It's a pretty small level. It's not much here. So let's go ahead and move on to level 3. At level 3, we are going to choose our subclass. The Blood Mage has access to 3, the Blood Knight, the Blood Magus, and the Blood Reaver. The Blood Knight is a more defensive subclass. You get access to a fighting style, extra attack, and Blood Bulwark. Bolster someone's flesh with an infusion of fortifying magic, granting them temporary HP equal to 1d10 plus your Blood Mage level. You also get Blood Mages, which is more of a mage class where you can trade out your health for spell slots of the first, second, or third type or level. But the Blood Reaver is the one that we're going to be picking for this level because you also get a fighting style, and more than anything, we're going to get the unarmored defense, which is going to add our strength modifier to our armor class. Boom. That's where we went for 16 strength. We're also going to get Unbridled Bloodlust. When you defeat a creature, you regain hit points equal to 1d4 increased by your proficiency bonus. So at this level, it's going to be 1d4 plus 2, and it'll keep going up over, and eventually we'll be getting a nice bit of health every time we kill enemies, effectively drinking them of their blood to heal ourselves on each turn. We're also going to get a new action called Boiling Blood. And this is a really cool ability that is kind of like our Rage, that does damage to us, but gives us advantage on all attacks. Your blood begins to boil, and the magic enhances your combat capabilities. You lose 1 health at the beginning of each of your turns, but gain advantage to all your melee attack rolls. That's really awesome and very powerful. It's very much like, the idea here is that after your Blood Mage attacks people and gets a scent for blood, you enter a blood fury and just go kind of crazy, and you're like, whoa! So this is really fun. And I think it really plays into Astarion just like losing himself in the blood. Additionally, having advantage on our attack rolls is something that applies to a bunch of different weapons, and it's definitely not something that we're going to exploit. Wink, wink. For our spell, at level 3, we are going to take Rend. This is a really great melee necrotic damage option. You can see here it does 2d12 necrotic damage, force the blood to gurgle and rupture from within an adjacent victim. They suffer immediate damage as well as blood loss damage on subsequent turns. This is really cool to be able to apply bleed and also to just do a bunch of necrotic damage with 1 hit. Spells aren't super powerful for this build. It's mostly a melee focus build, so we really just want to focus on anything that will kind of enhance our melee abilities. And for our fighting style, we have a number of options here. Clearly, I have a ton. I have some additional mods installed that expand the fighting style list, but oddly enough, I am going with a vanilla option from the base game, Dueling. When you are wielding a melee weapon that is not two-handed or versatile in one hand and no weapon in the other, you deal an additional 2 damage with that weapon. You can carry a shield in your free hand and still gain this bonus. So we're just going to have a shield in one hand and a weapon in the other, and we're going to get 2 extra damage for free. That's freaking sweet. Go ahead and take it. So at level 4, we are actually going to take our first dip into another class. Level 4 is normally where we would take a feat, as you can see here. So in order for us to want to delay that, we're going to want to take it for a very important reason, especially since this means we're also going to be delaying the extra attack that we would get at level 5. But the reason that we're going to take a multi-class dip here is to grab a level of the Rogue class from base game. This is going to give us access to Sneak Attack. Deal extra damage to a foe you have advantage against. Well, lucky us, we just got an ability that we can use in combat that gives us advantage on every attack. So now we can do Sneak Attack on every turn. We can proc our sneak attacks and just do extra damage and do nukes every turn. So this is the kind of it additionally feeds into that whole sort of vibe of Astarion killing an enemy and raging into a blood frenzy and then going crazy and doing even more damage to enemies. Really powerful, really great. This is just going to get even more powerful as we level up too. And this is really one of my favorite things about Sneak Attack is that it really just relies on having advantage. However you trigger Sneak Attack, however you would gain your advantage, is up to you. Whether you get it from hiding, from invisibility, from the risky ring, or as a Blood Reaver by boiling your blood, we're going to be able to make sneak attacks on basically every turn. So that's just a lot of fun. But Rogue doesn't get much else at level 1, so we are going to go ahead and move on. At level 5, we are going to go back to Blood Mage, and we are going to take it up to level 4 so we can grab our feat and a new spell. For our spell, you can take whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and grab this one, Rebellious Flesh. This is the other unique one to the class. You turn the flesh of a target creature against its own will, making their body uncooperative towards their own instructions. They suffer disadvantage towards all attacks and ability checks, as well as strength, dexterity, constitution saving throws, and have their speed reduced for up to the next 3 rounds. It's just a really powerful debuff. I'm not going to use this very often, but it's cool to have if you want to use it. But for our feat, we have a couple of options here, and I want to give a heads up that this is the only feat that we're going to be taking for this build. This build is going to end up being a 6, 3, and 3 multi-class, so we're only going to have access to this one feat. So we must choose wisely. You could go with Alert if you wanted, and this would be a really great option for Honor Mode if you were playing this solo, because it'll give you a +5 bonus to Initiative and can't be surprised. Not being able to be surprised and the +5 to Initiative is going to help make sure that you go first, which is going to help us do a ton of damage when we pick our subclass later on. You could also go for an ability score improvement to raise your strength up to do more damage if you wanted to. You could also pick Savage Attacker. This would also increase your damage, especially since we're doing a lot of different dice rolls. When making melee weapon attacks, you roll your damage dice twice and use the highest result. We're going to be doing a lot of different damage riders and additional damage die like on top of it. So this is a really great one to be able to also be able to take to do a ton more damage. But at the end of the day, I think that what I want to take is an ability score improvement and go for 2 points in strength to get us extra damage, extra AC, because that will also give us that. It's going to stretch our feet out the most, I think. Moving on to level 6, we're going to reach Blood Mage level 5, and this is where we're going to get extra attack. Unfortunately, you can't sneak attack twice per turn, so we can't do 2. Regardless, an extra attack is still really awesome, and we still have advantage, so I'm not upset. This is part of the reason that I'm playing this build, is for the extra attack. But that is about it, so we are going to move on to level 7. When we reach level 7, we are going to be taking our last level of Blood Mage. At Blood Mage level 6, we're going to get access to Sanguine Strike, which is kind of like Vampiric Touch, but channeled through your weapon. And it's a bit expensive to cast. It's 2 level 1 spell slots, an action and a bonus action, but you gain an extra 1d10 of necrotic damage on top of your weapon. It inflicts your victim with bleeding and heals yourself for half the damage dealt. So that's really cool, especially if you're doing a really big chunk of damage that you can then turn back as a really big healing onto yourself. The Blood Mage class features progression up to level 20, but this is where we're going to stop with it. If you decide to take it further, you get a huge AoE acid damage attack at level 10, and at level 16 you get plus 10 feet to your movement speed, as well as immunity to restrained, immobilized, and stun conditions. But I'm not super worried about those, so extra attack and Sanguine Strike are the last things that we really need from this class. So this is where we're going to stop. At level 8, we are going to take our second level of Rogue. This isn't going to get us very much besides Cunning Actions. Cunning Action Hide, Cunning Action Dash, and Cunning Action Disengage. You can use these on your bonus action now. But other than that, it really just gets us closer to our Rogue subclass, which is the main thing that we're interested in. Because at level 9, we are going to get our third and final level of Rogue so that we can get the Assassin subclass. This is going to give us advantage on attack rolls against creatures that haven't taken a turn yet. With Assassinate Initiative, you are deadliest against unprepared enemies. In combat, you have advantage on attack rolls against creatures that haven't taken a turn yet. So if you have high initiative, or you pick the alert feat and you're pushing yourself first, we're going to take some items. They're going to give us that initiative that we want, that will help us get there. So we're not going to need the alert feat. But if you go in front of them, you're always going to get crits off of those attacks, or you're going to have advantage. So having advantage on attack rolls for the first turn, or against enemies that haven't attacked yet, means that basically, for our purposes, means we can just delay the casting of our buff to turn 2 and use our first bonus action for something else, like a potion, or throwing or throwing something, or literally anything. You can do whatever you want with your extra bonus action. But this is really great, even though it's only one extra bonus action with a rogue is very powerful. We're also going to get Assassinate Ambush. Any successful attack roll against a surprise creature is a critical hit. So if we also manage to start combat with a surprise round, then we can get a critical hit on them, which is really awesome because our crits are going to be doing a lot of damage, especially since we're doing sneak attacks too. And we're also going to get Assassin's Alacrity. Quick as an alley cat in a rain dark city, you immediately restore your action and bonus action at the start of combat. So if you start with a surprise round, you can reset at the beginning so you don't lose out on your attacks and you get extra. What these abilities in combination are going to enable us to do is start combat like a typical rogue would, with a sneak attack, gaining advantage and crits on our enemies. Then we get a Taste for Blood, burst into a blood frenzy, and buff ourselves to maintain that advantage throughout the rest of combat. This effectively gives the Assassin Rogue a ton of long-term viability, instead of just being effective on the first turn of combat, and just doing a huge nuke on that first turn and then just kind of being like, okay, I guess I'm done. With this, we can do that huge nuke and then keep going. Also, we have extra attack, which rogues don't get. So that's pretty cool. As we reach level 10, we are going to take a multi-class into another class. And this time we are going to go for Fighter. I can find it. There it is. We're going to use these last 3 levels with Fighter to get us another fighting style, Action Surge, and a Fighter subclass. For our fighting style at level 1, we are going to take defense. This is just going to give us a +1 bonus to armor class while wearing armor. Really awesome. You can't go wrong with more armor class. At level 11, we reach fighter level 2, which gives us action surge. This is just an awesome ability that makes our character that much stronger on that first round or whenever we want to use this at pretty much every combat or however often we short rest. And finally, at level 12, we are going to be taking the champion subclass for the fighter. This is a pretty simple subclass. It's going to add improved critical hit. The number you need to roll a critical hit while attacking is reduced by 1. This effect can stack. This is pretty simple, but it's a really great ability to have. More crit chance is more attacks, or is more damage, and more damage is more enemies killed, and more health gained, and more fun. So this is just really awesome. You could go for Eldritch Knight if you wanted to bind your weapon, and then you could do a throwing build if you wanted to, but I'm going to go with champion because I like that too. But that pretty much takes care of all the leveling for this character. So let's head back out and take a look at what gear and equipment is best for Astarion here, with his silly little face. So when it comes to gear for our vampire pal Astarion, I think that for the headpiece, we should start with the Horns of the Berserker. You can get this when you get to Act 3. You gain a +2 bonus to attack rolls when attacking creatures that have already taken damage. That's really awesome because it means we're going to hit even more often against enemies that have already taken damage, and pretty much every enemy is going to have already taken damage with this character because we're going to have bled them a lot of the time. It's also going to give you unarmed and melee attacks will deal an extra 2 necrotic damage as long as you don't have your full health. We almost never have our full health because we are going to be bleeding pretty much all the time or taking that blood price damage. If you don't deal any damage this turn, you take 1 to 4 necrotic damage at the end of your turn. We're going to be dealing damage pretty much all the time, so this is basically just going to give us an extra 2 necrotic damage all the time. We are also going to use the Flesh Melter Cloak, which gives us Caustic Reprisal. Whenever a creature deals melee damage to the wearer, that creature takes 1d4 acid damage. This is really cool. It just means that any time that we get attacked with a melee attack, and we're going to do 1d4 acid damage retaliatory. In addition, we are going to wear the Blood Guzzler Garb. You can get this really early in Act 1. When an enemy damages the wearer gains Wrath for 1 turn. What Wrath is going to do is you have a +1 bonus to damage with melee weapons for every turn this condition has remaining. So we are a Blood Mage, and we are, every time that an enemy attacks us and there's blood, we are going to guzzle up our own blood and get more powerful from it, because why the hell not? That's so much fun. We also are going to wear the Icarus Gloves. When the wearer deals acid damage, they also inflict noxious fumes upon the target. So here we are dealing acid damage. So if an enemy attacks us, they are going to get noxious fumes. Additionally, what noxious fumes does is hostile creatures in a radius of 3 meters take 1d4 acid damage. This is going to create a little AoE that is just kind of make the air around your character, around the enemies, stinky, and it'll just do more acid damage in like a radius. It's really cool. I'll show you when we get there. And it's also going to pair really well with one of the rings that we're wearing, which is the Caustic Band. Your weapon attacks deal 2 acid damage, so this is going to apply a flat 2 acid damage to every weapon attack that we make, which means that every weapon attack is going to do 2 acid damage, which means it's going to inflict the noxious fumes. We're going to be spreading that noxious fumes around everywhere. We're going to combine that with the Evasive Shoes, which is going to give us a +1 to acrobatics, but most importantly, a +1 to our armor class. Really awesome. Really great to have more armor class all the time. So because this character is healing itself all the time, every time that you kill an enemy, you heal yourself. Every time that you fight an enemy, you heal yourself. So whenever the wearer is healed, their weapon becomes coated in magic and deals an additional 1d6 poison damage. The Broodmother's Revenge, you can get this from Kaga. This one's really great because I don't use this very often on many builds, and I didn't know there wasn't really another necklace that really went here. And I thought, you know what, why not go for more poison damage, just add another damage rider, and I feel like a vampire would use poison on his weapon. That would be really cool. So like I mentioned, the Caustic Band is going to give us 2 acid damage to every weapon attack. We're also going to pair it with the Ring of Elemental Infusion. When you deal acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage using a spell or cantrip, that element infuses your weapon. Until the end of your next turn, you deal an additional 1d4 damage of that element on your first successful weapon attack. So this is just going to mean that we are able to use like our Rain of Hissing Blood is a spell that will do acid damage, and then it'll add a 1d4 of acid damage to our next weapon attack. So basically, it's just going to mean it's going to reward us for playing our class and using our different abilities. We are then going to pair this with the Vicious Short Bow. This is going to give us the Dolor Amaris buff, which when you land a critical hit with a weapon or unarmed attack, it deals an additional 7 damage. So in order to gain this buff, you don't have to hit someone and get a critical hit with the bow. It says when you land a critical hit with a weapon or unarmed attack. This literally just applies, this is just a buff that you get. So anytime you get a critical hit with any weapon, as long as you have this bow on, you get this buff that will give you +7 damage. Really cool. It's the same buff that's on the Doloramaris right here. Doloramaris dagger, which is one of the daggers we have access to if you want to use it when we get to Act 3. When you're early in the game, I definitely recommend using something like the Slicing Short Sword. You can get this from, I think you can get this from Lantarv in Act 2. I guess that's not that early in the game. When you're earlier than that in the game, I definitely recommend using just really any dagger or anything that's like a short sword that does really good damage is really a good option for you there. The Knife of the Undermountain King is a really good option. We also have the Sword of Life Stealing. You can also get this in Act 2. On a critical hit, the target takes an extra 10 necrotic damage as long as it isn't a construct or an undead. You also gain 10 temporary hit points. This one's really good if you're doing a lot of crits. You're going to do extra 10 necrotic damage on every hit and do just a bunch of damage, and then also gain temporary hit points off of it. But the Slicing Short Sword is the one that you get from Lantarv, and the wielder attacks with advantage, which we always do. The attack inflicts bleeding. So this is really a weapon that is kind of central to the build if you want to use this. It's going to, or they're kind of in that mid part of the game. It's really great because then every weapon attack that you do is going to pass bleeding around, and enemies are just going to be bleeding all over the place. When you get towards the end of the game and you get access to Crimson Mischief, this is probably the weapon that you want to take, because at this point in the game, builds become a little bit less important as the weapons become so powerful that there's no point in not taking them. But Crimson Mischief is really great when you make an attack with advantage, which we always do. The target takes an additional 7 piercing damage. So first we get 7 for advantage, which is really cool. But then if you get a crit, you get an extra 7. So if you get a crit off of that advantage, which is pretty likely, because we have a buff to our crits, then it's going to be 14 extra damage. It's just, and it kind of builds off of it. Plus the 1d4 necrotic that this weapon does, plus this weapon deals additional 1d4 piercing damage against targets with 50% of their hit points or fewer. So that second attack that you do against them is going to do even more damage. But regardless, for the vast majority of Act 3, other than the very late end game, you're probably going to want to go with the Slicing Short Sword, because it's going to pass that bleeding around and really do what you want it to do. We are also going to pair that with the Sentinel Shield. This one is going to give us a +2 to our armor class, but most importantly, it's going to give us a +3 bonus to initiative rolls and advantage on perception ability checks. This is going to be sort of our answer to not taking the alert feat, because we want to have extra initiative, and we're also going to be playing this character with a Twilight Cleric, so we're going to have another +3, and it's effectively going to be the alert feat, +6 in total. You could also use the Adamantine Shield, but there's probably another character that is better deserving of this shield on whatever game character you're playing. But now that we have covered all the gear, let's go take a look at some combat and see how this build plays. Okay, so we're here outside Baldur's Gate at Worm's Rock, and we're sneaking around because we want to try to get a sneak attack. I don't think we can, because these guards are like guarding. Or we can get a sneak attack, but we can't, you can't surprise, I don't think. So let's go ahead and get a sneak attack out, and we're going to go ahead and target Fist Jepson. Boom!
You were witnessed assaulting someone.
I know.
You're headed.
So we didn't go first, but that's okay. It's a miss. And we activate our Wrath. 2 turns of it, so now we have a +1 bonus to damage with melee weapons for every turn this condition has remaining. Boom. And we haven't even gone yet. And so even though we hit once, we are going to get an extra attack. Let's see. So none of these enemies have gone yet, so they all have the Assassinate initiative, which means that we are going to get advantage on them. Or it's going to be, we get advantage and it's going to be crits. So we're going to be doing some nasty damage to these enemies that haven't gone yet, which is a really baller. We're going to start by doing a little Sanguine Strike here. This one's going to spend 2 of our spell slots, so we're not going to have very many spell slots left. You can really only do this once per day, but I want to show you how it kind of works. Boom! Tons of hits there. Look at all that damage. He's insta-killed. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. How do I make it bigger? There it is. All right, Fist Jepson. 16 damage, 5 damage, 2 damage, 8 damage, 7 piercing damage, 2 necrotic damage. Felt a lethal blow, was hit for 7 piercing, 2 necrotic, 9 piercing, and 7 necrotic. So, as you can see, He got hit for a lot of damage. Is there a total on that? No. That's okay. We still have more attacks to do. Because that was just our extra attack from our surprise attack round. Now we're going to come over here and we're going to get this guy, Fist Richter. And we have our extra attack. And you can see here, this is the noxious fumes from our acid damage. So anyone that comes in this area is going to take 1d4 acid damage. We're going to go ahead and attack again. Critical hit. He's now dead. Look at all that damage. 26, 14, 4, 9, 2. Boom. Let's see. Now we have our action surge that we're going to go ahead and pop. We just got a free action. Boom. Let's do one more attack. He's also got his noxious fumes. This person is taking noxious fume damage on his turn. And we're going to attack. Boom. That is 3 enemies down on turn 1. Actually, was there a 4th one? No, 3. That's 3 enemies down on turn 1, and we can go ahead and end our turn. That's crazy. But that's what the Assassin Rogue does. I mean, without the extra attacks and all that stuff, and the advantage, but... Oh, that wasn't fun. Well, so our attack then did a critical hit back on him, so before, we didn't even hit him there, but he's already taken 20 damage health. We're getting hit here because this is probably not the best solo build, but... So now we don't have our Assassinate, but which is usually where this character kind of falls off. After first round, you're kind of done. But now, because of our Boiling Blood, we've got our blood, all this blood around us is making us go freaking insane. I'm angry, and I want blood. Now we have advantage on all our attacks. We also have our 1d6 poison damage, 2d6 piercing, because we're going to sneak attack. So our sneak attacks are doing 21 to 47 damage here. Let's do this guy, because we could kill him. We did kill him. Easy. And now we have not a range attack. I'm going to do a regular attack. That's just crazy. We also have 5 turns of Wrath, so we are also getting a +5 bonus to our damage with melee attacks for every turn. So yeah, I'm probably going to die here because I'm alone, and I'm low on health. Yeah. So, probably not the best solo character, unless you play better than me. I wasn't really doing any strategy there. I was just kind of standing around and going, stab, stab. So, oh, hello, who's that? I know who that is. Regardless, oh, they're still taking damage from the Icarus explosion, corrosion out there. They're still taking the, that's so funny. Sorry. Dang, that's funny. Okay. But that just about does it for this Astarion Vampire Blood Mage Reaver build. What do you think of it? It's not super overpowered, obviously. I died, like a lot of the other modded classes are, and I actually think that's really refreshing. It plays more like a vanilla class, and you can see that reflected in how I built it, similar to a Gloomstalker assassin, but with different gear, being the Wrath and Noxious damage, the acid. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next one.